You know that feeling, right?
Hmm.
That real drive to just get something, to master a skill and finally have that amazing aha
Uh-huh.
moment when it all clicks.
Absolutely. It's incredibly satisfying.
Well, that's pretty much what we do here. Welcome to the deep dive. We take source material you're curious about and we really pull out the essential insights fast, efficiently.
Yeah, think of us as your guides. You bring the curiosity, maybe the sources, and we help you navigate through it all, pinpointing what really matters. Sort of a shortcut to getting informed.
And today, we're diving into something I bet a lot of you can relate to, learning a new language. We've got this YouTube video. It's from the English Avenue channel.
Right, and the title's pretty bold, isn't it? How I Learned English in 5 Months, My Powerful Story. With Graded Reader, Improve Your English You.
Exactly. 5 months. That definitely grabs your attention. Learning English that fast and apparently without super expensive classes or, living abroad.
It really makes you wonder how, doesn't it? What was the secret sauce?
Well, the video shares the story of Jake. He's a 26-year-old software engineer from Brazil. And our mission today is to unpack his core strategies, his mindset, basically what allowed him to pull this off.
His journey might have some really useful takeaways, I think, not just for language learning, but maybe for tackling any big learning challenge, really.
Definitely. We're going to trace his steps, where he started, what pushed him, the actual methods he used, and how it all turned out.
It's not just what he did, but trying to understand why it worked so well for him.
Okay, let's get into it. So, Jake's starting point. Here's this guy, skilled software engineer, technically very capable,
Right. Clearly smart.
but he couldn't put together even a basic English sentence, like not even simple greetings. It kind of highlights how crucial language is, doesn't it? Especially in global fields like tech.
It really does. You can have all the technical skills, but if you can't communicate effectively, it creates this huge barrier. Language is a key, unlocking those opportunities.
And his motivation was crystal clear. He dreamed of working for an international tech company, specifically in the US. He'd obviously put in the work to become good at his job.
Yeah, he had the skills, just not the communication tool.
And the turning point, the real catalyst, was this failed job interview. He talks about just being totally lost, the speed of the conversation.
Oh, yeah, feeling overwhelmed, unable to follow, having the knowledge trapped inside because you can't express it. That's incredibly frustrating.
He said something like, "The silence felt like a knife in my stomach." Wow, that really paints a picture of the emotional weight of that moment.
It hit him hard. It wasn't about his engineering skills. It was purely the language barrier.
And that's when he realized, okay, English isn't just some subject. It's the key, the thing he absolutely needed for his dream.
And importantly, he'd already tried let's say, the standard route, right?
Yeah, he mentioned spending money on online classes. You know, the type vocab lists, grammar exercises, maybe kind of boring rules.
Things that often feel disconnected from actually speaking the language. And he found they didn't really work for him, didn't get him where he needed to be.
Which is why he decided, okay, I need a different approach. This leads us to his first 15 days, and this part is really interesting.
His initial insight is quite counterintuitive, isn't it?
Totally. He figured beginners often think they need more words, but he thought the real problem, at least initially, is not being able to use the words you already kind of know.
Right. It's not about volume, it's about activation, using what's already there, building that foundation first before just piling on more vocabulary.
So what did he actually do? He made this survival sentence list, about 50 basic, everyday phrases.
Like the absolute essentials. Hi, how are you? Can you repeat that? I don't understand that kind of thing.
Exactly, the building blocks. And the key part was the repetition, reading them aloud.
Yeah.
10 times, every single morning, until they were just automatic.
Making those core phrases totally effortless. That seems smart. It frees up your brain power, right? So you're not struggling with the basics when you try to have a slightly more complex interaction.
Yeah, like muscle memory for your mouth almost.
Mm-hmm.
He also started talking to himself in English all day long.
Yeah.
Which sounds a bit odd maybe, but think about it, zero pressure.
Totally judgment-free practice, just narrating your day internally.
I am taking a shower, the water feels hot, I am making breakfast. Simple stuff.
Yeah.
But constant. That private practice must have really helped him get comfortable just producing English sounds and sentences.
It's like mental gymnastics, isn't it?
Yeah.
Warming up the brain to think and articulate in English, even if nobody else hears it.
Yeah.
Building those pathways.
And then he had this other method, 5 sentences a day with a twist. He'd grab sentences from movies or maybe real conversations he overheard.
Okay, so real-world examples.
Yeah, and he'd copy them exactly, repeat them 10 times, focusing on matching everything, the emotion, the speed, the pronunciation, trying to sound just like the native speaker.
So not just the words, but the music of the language, the intonation, the rhythm. That's really important for sounding natural.
Definitely. And he said the result was, for those basic sentences anyway, he stopped translating in his head. That feels like a big hurdle cleared.
Oh, huge. Moving beyond that constant mental back and forth between languages, that's a major sign of progress, indicates a more direct connection.
Okay, so that was the first couple weeks, getting the foundation solid. After that, Jake really ramped things up. This is when he says the real practice begins.
Right, he felt okay with the basics, but the goal was fluency, right? Real conversations, understanding people without that constant mental lag.
Exactly. So this next phase is all about building that fluency, moving beyond just survival sentences. He talks about the question-answer method.
Which sounds like it's designed to make speaking feel more spontaneous, less like reciting.
Yeah, pretty much. He'd ask himself simple questions in English, like, what did you do today? And then answer immediately. But then he'd push himself to add more detail over time. So I worked on my project for maybe 3 hours. Then I took a break.
I see. So training the brain to connect ideas and speak more fluidly, not just give one-word answers, building that conversational muscle.
Right. And then for pronunciation, really drilling down on sounding natural, he used the echo technique.
Echo technique. How did that work?
Listening to native speakers, maybe audio clips or videos, and immediately repeating what they said, like right after them, trying to copy everything.
Speed, tone, emotion, the whole package.
Exactly. He gives examples like repeating, I don't know what you're talking about, or it was a beautiful day, so I decided to go for a walk. Just echoing it.
That's intensive practice. It forces you to really listen actively and then engage your own mouth and voice to replicate it.
And he said he got positive feedback on his pronunciation pretty quickly, like within a month of doing that. That must have been encouraging.
Definitely. Positive reinforcement makes a big difference.
Now, vocabulary. We all know it's important, but Jake's method sounds way better than just memorizing lists. He called it the story method.
Okay. Intrigued. Learning words through stories.
Yeah, every day he'd pick 5 new words. Then he'd create a short story, just a few sentences maybe, that used all 5 of those words.
Yeah. Putting them in context immediately.
Right. And he'd read that story aloud. Then, crucially, he'd try to actually use those 5 words in conversations during the day, or even in his self-talk.
That makes so much sense. You're not just learning the word, you're learning how it fits, how it functions. It's much more likely to stick.
He gave an example with words like excited, invitation, party, arrive, surprise, and made a little story about a birthday party.
Nice. Concrete.
And he claims he learned over 1,000 words in 3 months this way, without just drilling flashcards.
That contextual learning is powerful, much better for retention and for actually being able to use the words correctly later.
He also really focused on thinking in English. This seems like a big one.
It's often seen as the threshold for true fluency, isn't it? When your internal monologue switches over.
Yeah, so he practiced it consciously. Mentally describing his surroundings in English, asking himself questions and answering them in his head in English, and keeping a daily journal writing in English.
Actively forcing the brain to operate in the target language.
And he said eventually it just started happening. English words would come naturally without consciously translating from Portuguese first. That's the goal, right?
Absolutely. It's like the language becomes part of your operating system, not just an app you have to launch consciously.
And underpinning all of this was his 2-hour daily speaking rule.
Wow, 2 hours every day.
Every single day. Minimum 2 hours of actually speaking English, even if it was just talking to himself, narrating his actions while cooking or whatever. That's serious commitment.
That consistency is huge. Language learning is a marathon, not a sprint, and that kind of daily dedication builds momentum and reinforces everything else he was doing.
Okay, so he built this really strong foundation with all that active practice. Then he moved into what he called the final breakthrough stage. This was more about refining things, getting more nuanced, and building confidence.
Polishing the skills, basically.
Yeah, he started paying closer attention to sentence structure. Not just mimicking, but actively observing native speakers and asking why they phrased things a certain way.
Getting analytical. Looking under the hood of the language.
Right. He even researched how tenses are actually used in real life, comparing it to maybe what's taught in books, like when do people really use present perfect versus present continuous, that kind of thing.
That's a smart move, understanding the practical application beyond just the textbook rules. Because real speech often bends those rules, doesn't it?
Definitely. And prepositions, the bane of many English learners. He had a specific strategy for those too.
Oh yeah, those little words can be tricky. What did he do?
He kept a dedicated notebook just for confusing prepositions. He'd write down the preposition, an example sentence showing how it's used correctly, maybe a note about the context.
Okay, so isolating the problem areas.
And then he'd actively look for clarification, maybe online, or just by listening super carefully when native speakers use those prepositions, a very targeted approach.
Instead of just hoping it sinks in passively, he actively hunted down the answers. Good strategy.
He kept up with his daily English diary too, but he started evolving it. He wasn't just writing about his day anymore.
What changed?
He started trying to copy the style of things he was reading, blogs, books, news articles, trying to make his writing sound more sophisticated, more varied.
So leveling up his writing skills by modeling good examples. That's advanced practice.
And the shadowing technique became even more important at this stage, still listening to native speakers through headphones and repeating immediately.
Trying to match them perfectly.
Yeah, matching speed, pronunciation, rhythm. He aimed for at least 20 minutes of this every day. And he really felt this dramatically improved his pronunciation.
It's like high-intensity interval training for your speaking skills. Really forces focus and precision.
He also used movies. Watching English movies with subtitles, sure, but not just passively.
How did he make it active?
He'd pause the movie, pick a sentence a character said, and repeat it. Again, focusing on nailing the pronunciation, the tone, the rhythm of how the actor delivered it.
That active engagement again. It seems to be the common thread through all his methods, doesn't it? No passive consumption.
Exactly. It's about doing, not just receiving. And maybe the biggest thing in this phase, tackling the fear of making mistakes.
The psychological barrier. Huge for many learners.
He just forced himself to speak English whenever he possibly could. At work, ordering coffee, talking to friends, even just his self-talk. Just get the words out.
And what happened? Did people judge him?
Apparently not. He found people were generally patient, understanding, even encouraging. That positive reinforcement really boosted his confidence, made him less afraid to try.
That's so important to hear. Mistakes are just part of learning, and most people get that.
Yeah. And one final piece, preparing for actual conversations with native speakers. He didn't just jump in cold.
What did he do?
He actually prepared and practiced responses for about 10 common conversation topics, like hobbies, work, travel, stuff that comes up a lot.
Like having some conversational scripts ready to go.
Sort of, yeah. Gave him a safety net. Then he joined an online language exchange group, found a supportive place to practice for real, and even made some friends through it.
Smart. Taking the skills practiced in private and applying them in a real but still relatively safe social context. Preparation meets opportunity.
So all this hard work, all these techniques, they led to some really significant moments for him. He talks about noticing his own self-talk, his internal thoughts, just flowing in English naturally.
That must have been an amazing feeling. Like, wow, it's actually happening.
Yeah, a real sign the language was becoming automatic, like you said earlier,
Mhm.
integrated.
Then he had this online meeting
Right.
with native English speakers, and he had a proper, deep, successful conversation. That was a moment he felt, okay, I've actually achieved fluency.
That real-world validation, proof that the practice paid off. And the ultimate proof. He reapplied for that dream job,
The one he failed the interview for initially.
the very one. And this time, he nailed it. Got the job, and apparently a much better salary, too.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And he puts it down not just to the English itself, but the confidence that came with mastering it. It shows how language skills can unlock those professional doors.
Absolutely. Tangible results, career advancement, better income. It really demonstrates the value.
And he shares these really touching moments, like calling his parents to tell them the news, being able to buy them gifts with his first paycheck. It makes it very human, It wasn't just about the job.
It highlights the personal drive, the emotional significance of achieving a goal like that and sharing it with loved ones. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah. So finally, he boils it all down to 7 key lessons he learned. These feel like the real gems from his experience.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, mindset. You gotta believe you can learn. Second, surround yourself with English. Make it part of your environment. Phone language, music, shows, thinking in it.
Immersion, even if it's self-created, makes sense.
Third, speak without fear. Embrace mistakes. They're how you learn. Fourth, active listening and shadowing. Train your ear. Mimic native speakers.
That active engagement theme again.
Fifth, expand vocabulary smartly. Learn words in context. Focus on useful phrases, not just single words. Sixth, grammar without drowning in textbooks. Learn it more naturally through listening and speaking and correcting mistakes as you go.
Like how kids learn their first language almost.
Yeah.
More intuitive.
And seventh, maybe the most important, consistency over perfection. Just keep practicing every day, even if it's not perfect. Don't wait until you feel ready.
Those are really solid takeaways. They cover the practical techniques, the mindset, the need for consistency, applicable way beyond just English, I think. That consistency point is key for any skill.
Totally agree. So, summing up, Jake's story is pretty compelling proof that you can learn English effectively and relatively quickly without breaking the bank or moving country. It's about the approach.
Right. It's about having the right mindset, using smart, active techniques consistently, and just doing the work, not relying on expensive shortcuts or passive learning.
And there are so many actionable ideas in there for you, the listener, things you could actually start doing today, whatever you're trying to learn.
Like that survival sentence idea for basics, or the self-talk practice, the echo or shadowing techniques, even just committing to consistency over trying to be perfect right away.
Yeah, maybe think about which of Jake's methods kind of clicks with you, with your own learning style. Where are you in your journey?
Even picking just one or two of those and really committing to them could make a real difference, couldn't it?
I think so. Maybe your own 5-month transformation, whatever that looks like for you, is closer than you think. It makes you wonder, right? Which technique could you try starting tomorrow?
It's definitely food for thought. And Jake's final words in the video are pretty fitting, aren't they?
Yeah, if I can do it, you can do it too. Simple but powerful.
A really encouraging note to end on.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
Always a pleasure.
Until the next time we explore some fascinating source material.